Hi, everyone. Okay, let's try working and having a conversation about the number nine. The number nine is a mystical, empathetic, intuitive, very strongly feminine, the ultimate feminine number. And it is really about all of the most beautiful things that are related to the divine feminine: instinct, gut awareness, how the universe speaks to us through our feelings, intuition, art, creativity, mysticism, magic. It's associated with Isis and Nephthys. So that's the two faces of the goddess: the light goddess, which is Isis, the fertility goddess, and Nephthys, which is the dark goddess, which is the goddess of the underworld and the goddess of death. So it has both of those sides. And so obviously, intuition and magic can be used for positive or for negative, and ultimately the goal is to use it for positive, but you can't deny the negative. I know for myself as a psychic, a lot of times when people come to a psychic, they are desperate because they're afraid of something and there's a lot of bad things going on and they need to get a handle on it, and they want to be told that everything is fine. But everything is not always fine. Sometimes we have lessons that are really difficult and really tough. And as a psychic, you have to tell the truth. And so this is also associated with Hera, which was the Roman goddess who was blind on one side. And so she had an owl that sat on her blind side so she could see the whole truth. There's a lot of mythology and mysticism that is related to the number nine, that's also related to this concept of being able to see truth, being able to see all the truth, the good and the bad. And, while, as a psychic, I obviously want to give people the positive, sometimes it's really important to tell the truth, and not to just tell the truth, but to actually show why that might be happening. What is the karmic lesson, and what is the sequence, and where is that actually leading them as an outcome into the future? So what's the value of that? What is the sweetheart message of giving the truth that maybe is something somebody doesn't want to know and doesn't want to address? So the number nine is also the number of hormones and feminine hormones and instincts and all that kind of stuff. So it's really, interesting on that level. It's just, it's really instinctual. So it's also called the beauty way, which means that if you have nines in your yogic numerology system, in those areas that it applies to, you want to create beauty, you want to create light, you want to create things that inspire and make people's hearts happy. And I think beauty is one of those things that inspires people. So I always think of the number nine as Helen of Troy, and how Helen, her beauty launched 1,000 ships. And at the same time, it created war. It's beauty is something that you have to fight for in life in order to maintain it. And at the same time, beauty is something that is very fragile and it's very fleeting. Just as if you cut a rose, it's beautiful sitting on your table, but you know that that rose is going to die. And so there's always this light and dark, the Isis and the Nephthys, both sides, the truth and the pain of dealing with the truth. And we all have to find that within ourselves. One of the reasons that I'm doing this series of videos on numerology is that we're in an astrological time of great tumultuousness and turmoil and upset. And people who are sensitive, those that have nines in their numbers, those that have sixes in their numbers, those that have 11s in their numbers, they are more perceptive and they sense things and feel things. And so I can't tell you how many people have been coming in and saying, oh my God, what the hell is this feeling? Like, what is this? What is going on? Like, is everything falling apart and dysfunctional? And I'm like, yeah, kind of, because astrologically, sometimes things have to be broken down in order to be rebuilt. And so part of this is related to the planet Saturn being in Capricorn, because Saturn says, I want to help you build something that will stand the test of time. And to do that, I'm going to tear out all the rotted planks in your deck. Those rotted planks are like the truth. Okay, so it's like those things that you don't want to address. You're like, oh, it's a little bouncy. That deck's a little bouncy, but it's okay. Oh, it'll last another year. Oh, it'll last another year. And all of a sudden, it starts breaking down. And the number 9 is that number that goes, hello, that is going to break. And so those people that have 9s in their numbers are very perceptive to the breakdown or the change in the energy flow that is actually happening on the planet. And it's painful to them. It's actually physically painful to them. So there are people out there that don't understand, like, well, you just have to let it go. You just have to, you can't fix the world, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, you cannot tell that to a 9. I mean, a person who has strong 9s in their numbers is like a piece of tape in a lint pile. They are super sensitive to subtle energy. And so they can't not notice and they can't not feel. And the problem is that oftentimes because they're feeling it, they actually think it's them. And so I'm always saying, okay, wait a second. If you have a 9 in your numbers, pretty much most of what you're feeling doesn't even belong to you. So you kind of walk through life and you get slimed by this energy that is just extraneous out there. So a lot of people disown emotions and they detach from emotions and they separate from emotions. But what they don't realize is that when they're doing that, they're kind of spewing it all over the place. They're kind of throwing it outside their body and it impacts other people. So many years ago, I was teaching a workshop and there was a person who was in a lot of pain in the workshop. And I sat there and I watched this anger jump from person to person. It was the most bizarre thing because it wasn't like a demon. It wasn't a dark entity. It was literally energy. And so this person had disowned so much of their own pain and their own anger that it started popping around the room. And so all of a sudden that person's angry. And then all of a sudden that person's angry. And all of a sudden that person's angry. And so once I cleared everybody's anger, and I'm noticing that anger had no place to go, and it couldn't go into me because anger is not one of my issues. I don't get angry the way other people get angry. So I did anger work in my 20s, and so anger just doesn't trigger me the same way. But what happened was that anger had nowhere to go, so it actually popped back into that person. And the moment it popped back into the person, and they had to own that, they blew out of the room. I mean, they literally blew out of the room because they couldn't cope with their own feeling. And so I point that out because those people out there that are 9s, you may not realize how much of what you're picking up is other people's. And so learning how to clear your chakras, clear your energy field out of your house, do sage and cedar, open all the windows, you might have to do ritual clearing techniques consistently in order to support you not feeling depressed or feeling down. So for me, it's like, I found it really interesting when I was a kid. I'd be like, wait, I was fine until like 5 minutes ago. Like, what happened 5 minutes ago? And I'd be like, oh, I just talked to this person and they were really sad and now I'm sad. And so one of the mistakes that 9s make is that in the American traditions of spirituality and healing, you think you're supposed to take someone else's pain into your body and lift it up into the light, which sounds beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. But the reality is that kind of energy actually needs to go down. So that energy actually needs to go down into the ground, down into the earth. So Americans have a tendency to be like a funnel. The 9s especially can be really open at the top and they're kind of narrow at the bottom. And so the energy swirls inside of them for a little bit until it actually drops down. So in the vibration of the 9s, I want you to be a funnel. I want you to be a tube. I think it's interesting that the light is coming in right now. It's like, hello, light. So the light is coming in. It's coming in like a column right here. I love how the universe works anyway. So you want to be like a tube. You want to be as open at the top as you are at the bottom so that the energy can channel completely through you and it goes into the earth, because dark energy, heavy energy, sadness, anger, fear, destructive thoughts need to go down. They are eaten by the Pachamama, the earth energy, and they are brought down. And so oftentimes if you're a 9 and you can go on the ground because the weather is beautiful right now, and you can put your 3 inches below your belly button on the ground. So you open your pants and you put your belly button on the ground. That is the place where Mother Earth actually eats dark energy and will actually pull it out of you. And the first time I did this, I cried for 3 hours. I mean, I was like, whoa, I am holding a lot of stuff. And that's one of the challenges. It's one of the gifts of a 9, but it's one of the weaknesses of a 9, is that they take it on and take it on and take it on and take it on until they can no longer take it on. And then they start feeling depressed, they get really down, they get really angry, they get really frustrated. So I always tease and say the 9s are kind of like the weather. If you don't like the weather, wait a minute, because it'll probably change. But you need to let a 9 move through their emotions completely, and they actually will self-correct if you give them a chance to self-correct. And so this is true if the person who is a 9 is a man. So, men that have 9s, and my husband has a 9, is very sensitive, super perceptive, super aware of feelings and emotions. And so, I have to remind myself oh, whoop, he's really sensitive. So with a 9, if you give a 9 a little insult that you think you're throwing a pebble into their reality, it actually feels like you threw a house on them. Okay, like less is more when you're dealing with a 9, because they actually are reading the energy and they're reading the situation before it even gets there. And they're kind of like, oh God, they're really mad. Like they know you're mad the moment you walk in the door. They don't even need to, have you say, I think I'm mad. They're like, yeah, I've been noticing that for hours. So finding that balance for a 9 is important, but the most important thing is that a 9 needs to express what they're feeling, and then they will self-correct. And so anybody who is a friend to a 9 or a mate to a 9, just know you don't have to fix them. Please don't fix them. They are not broken. They are designed this way. They are designed to be the canary in the coal mine. They are designed to be that person that is super sensitive and paying attention to the subtle things that are happening in life. Okay, so I hope that helps you understand the number 9 and that was interesting to you. In this time period that we're in the world, I am trying to help people say and see through the numerology how they might better cope with the energies that are happening in the planet. So right now, whenever we get into a number 9 day, it's really good to listen to your intuition and pay attention to what's really going on, and open up your feelings and express your feelings consciously, safely, and constructively. And when you do that, so much can really change. Thanks everybody for listening.